Hello, would you tell us your name, please?
Anthony Rogers, Anthony J. Rogers.
And where do you live, Anthony?
I live at Saratoga Lake.
In Saratoga Lake. And you used to live in Hoosick Falls. And how old are you, by the way?
I'll be 31. I'll be 32 in August.
No, you'll be...
I'll be 92.
92, that's wonderful. You're 92. All right, and would you tell us a little about your life before you went into the service?
Well, before I went to the service, I worked for Tip to Wire, learning the garage business, learning the mechanical business. $3 a week.
Yeah.
After school and Saturdays.
I see. And then what happened?
What happened, and after a while, after I got smart enough, I went away to New York to learn the barber college. Went to barber college.
I see.
So I was a barber and a mechanic in the service.
All right, but what did you do in Hoosick Falls before you went to the service?
Hoosick Falls, I worked Noblin Woods, worked H.D. Cushman.
I see. And you worked at those places?
At those places.
All right, what happened when the war broke out, 1941, when the war broke out? Where were you?
I was running the barber shop. I was running the barber shop when the war broke out.
Yeah, and where was the barber shop?
On Clay Hill.
Up on Clay Hill, I see. And then the war broke out, and what happened with you?
They sent me a notice. I was going to, if I went down and volunteered, I could go any place I want.
I see. So what did you do?
What did I do? So I went down and volunteered. But now, can I tell you this? Now,
yeah, you can tell me anything. This is your show.
Why did they have to send me from Massachusetts to Camp Waller, Texas, with a 1917 uniform on?
Yeah, because, you know, at that time the American Firsters didn't let America. I interviewed people that were using broom handles for guns. So, but that was America back in those days. All right, so you went in the service, and what did they classify you as in the service?
Just a private.
Yeah, and what was your MO? In other words, what did they assign you to?
I was assigned to the walking soldier. That's
the 3rd Infantry, the 3rd Infantry Division.
3rd Infantry. No, I wasn't. I was after I never went with the people that I trained with.
Yeah, I see.
I was too old. So they
see.
kept me back and told me they were going to keep me as a motorcycle mechanic.
I see.
In Camp Wallers, Texas.
And then what happened?
Then I didn't stay there. They sent me to Fort Snelling, Minnesota, to 3rd Infantry.
All right. And what was your job there? Just an infantry?
My job was just a private.
Private infantry soldier. All right. And then what happened?
Well, then after I got released, I was 31 years old. So
I see. They sent you home at 31 because you're too old.
I was too old.
I see. And then what happened?
Then what happened? Then I got a job at the Waterville Arsenal as a guard.
I see.
Ken Harry was the boss of the.
Oh yeah, I knew Ken. Yeah.
Ken Harry.
I see. And then you worked at the Waterville Arsenal, and then what happened?
2 months.
2 months, and then what happened?
Then they called me back to service.
I see. They called you back. You got a notice to come back, huh?
I had to go to Pine Camp.
All right. And what happened?
From Pine Camp, I stayed right there until they activated the 4th Armored Division.
I see. And what was your job?
My job was a company barber and a mechanic.
Both.
Both.
I see. Then when did you ship overseas about?
What my shipped overseas was, honestly, I can't tell you.
I know. Okay, but you went overseas. You shipped out of. You went to Europe. You went to England first.
Went to England.
I see. And when you reached England, what happened?
We were in Chippingham, England. So I was at the motor pool and a barber. The same thing in England.
I see.
But,
well, let me ask you a question. In other words, you had a little barber shop where you cut men's hair, and then you'd have fixed.
And I worked and I've done that on my own time, cutting hair.
Oh, I see. That you just did to be nice to the guys, huh?
I was just doing that. That was my own time.
I see. But your MO was
motor pool all a while.
To work in the motor pool on the cars, on the Jeeps and trucks and stuff like that. All right, so you're in England, and then what happened?
In England, I was in the, like I say now, we had a company commander, Captain Robert E. Brine. Well, I ain't going to tell you what I called him or anything else, but I was there making racks for the half tracks. Now one guy had to cut 4 pieces of iron, 3 foot long. Another guy had to cut 8 pieces of iron, 2 foot long. And this company commander says, now the guy that's cutting the short ones can cut them faster than the guy cutting the big ones. Now can you figure that out? He's got to cut 8. He's got to make 8 cuts, and the guy cutting the long one's going to make 4 cuts. I said to the captain, I said, what kind of a school did you go to?
That must have made you popular with him.
It made me very popular with him, yes. I was dirt under his feet all the while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, once you get down on you, they get down on you.
yeah, yes.
All right, so you're in England, and they landed in Normandy, the Americans.
Well, now before we went to Normandy, Captain Robert E. McDonald, he was the captain of the motor pool. Robert E. Bryan was the captain of the company, the whole company. So Captain McDonald called me. He says, Rogers, he says, the captain's command car is on the bum. He says, nobody can fix it. Battalion headquarters can't fix it. The whole company of mechanics can't fix it. Now he says, I want you to take it and fix it. So I told him, I said, Captain, if it's fixable, I'll fix it. So I took it, and I told Tommy Thompson was the driver of the command car, so I take it up and back. I says, I'll take my toolbox and I'll come up and I'll work on it. Now I told him, I said, you set up in the seat and don't get off of the seat, because I'm not running a school for the Army. And I don't want you to see what I'm doing. So in the meantime, I raised up the hood, what they call the bonnet. In England they call it the bonnet, so I raised up the hood. Looked at it, so first thing I said, now start the engine. He started the engine. I said, Tommy, shut it off. I know what's the matter with it. So I took the carburetor apart, took the top off the carburetor and everything else, took it on, and I found out what was wrong with it. Nobody could fix it. All the mechanics they had couldn't fix it. They didn't know what was the matter with it, so I fixed it. So I put it back together. It took me about, well, maybe 45 minutes, an hour anyway. It was say an hour. So I told Tommy, I says, now take it out and try it. So I took it out. He says, Rogers, he says, what did you do to it? I says, I fixed it, didn't I? So in the meantime, he went to see Captain McDonald. He told me, I didn't see Captain McDonald till the next morning. They called me the next morning. We're getting ready to ship over, we're going across the channel. Captain McDonald says, he went in, now I could hear both captains. Now I can't tell you what they were saying, but there was some awful language, calling each other, to both captains. He told us, Captain McDonald called Captain Bryan, you know, he says, you got the best mechanic in the whole United States Army. Nobody could fix this vehicle. He fixed it in half an hour or an hour, fix it, it's running. They wanted to buy him a new one. Captain McDonald says, no, I got a man that'll fix it. So in the meantime, I did fix it. The next morning they called me, we're in tents now, we're getting ready to cross the channel. Right. So they got into tents, I go down, and I could hear them cursing and swearing at each other, the two captains. Pretty soon he says, now I want all the stripes you got and more too, he says. Nothing less than what you got, the best. So that's when they made me a tech sergeant.
Oh, right.
So, and in the meantime, after he come out, Captain McDonald brought the stripes out to me, and I could hear the first sergeant and another sergeant of the Al, what's his name? He was the superintendent out in where they make baby food, Canajoharie.
Yeah.
They were telling Captain Bryan, he says, Captain Bryan, don't you realize you got the best mechanic in the United States Army? He didn't want to give him any stripes. So he said, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, he said. That's what they told him.
I see. So you ended up a tech sergeant.
Tech sergeant.
And then, all right, and then you shipped, then they shipped over the channel.
That's 2 or 3 days from that, we went down to go down the boat. Well, in the meantime, they put, well, now I'm getting way ahead of myself.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, tell us about it, wherever you go.
They brought us from the Mojave Desert now.
Yeah.
Brought us into, they brought us in from the Mojave Desert in the wintertime. snow up to our knees. Put us in tar paper shacks. Well, in the first plan, why they brought us up to Canada, I don't know.
I see. You went from the desert up to Canada.
From the desert, they brought switch tracks going to Canada now at North Hoosick. Brought us up through Canada. All the cars froze up. The Pullman trains all froze up. Everybody got sick.
Do you get sick?
Yes, I was sick. Yes, I was sick. And brought us back, put us in these tar paper shacks. Now, snow up to our knees with summer clothes on now, after coming out the desert. So I was sick the next morning, and one medic was on one side of me in the shack, and the other one on the other, so we had two medics. I told Louis Spaldo, I said, Louis, I'm sick. He put his thermometers in my mouth. He said, Rod, he says, you are sick. You've got a fever of 105.
Wow.
He says. So, meantime, he says, get your clothes on. I'll walk you down to the dispensary. All right. Snow up to my knees. Summer clothes. So.
And this happened before you shipped overseas to England?
Just getting ready to ship overseas. So, brought me down, and the Jewish doctor down there says, Louis, fever can't be so high. So he put the thermometer in my mouth. He called Louis back. He said, Louis, you're right. He said, 105. So he said, go back and get your shaving equipment. You got to go to the hospital. So I got my shaving equipment the next morning. I still...
Why don't you have a drink here? Take a little drink of water.
Got something stuck
Yeah,
in it.
right. Go ahead. That's it. There you go. All right, so you got 105 fever, and they're going to the
105
hospital.
fever. Took me to the hospital. So the doctors looked me over in the morning. He says, still, fever was 104, 105 yet. He said, well, he says, we can't do nothing with him. He's shipping out right away. He said, put your clothes on. You're going to get on the boat.
They shipped you out with 105 fever overseas.
And I was the first man in our company that went down to the bottom of the ship, right over the top of the propellers.
Yeah. Okay, so now we got you to England, and you fixed the car,
Yes.
The officer's car,
Yeah.
and then they shipped you into through Normandy to Germany.
We went to Chippenham, England. That's where we landed.
And then after, you trained in England, then after Normandy you went into Europe, right? And where did you go in Europe?
All I can tell you is this, we hit the beaches in Normandy.
Oh, how soon after that, like
After
D-Day +1, D-Day +5, when did you hit? When did you hit Normandy?
We hit Normandy as soon as the Marines got in ahead of us, so they made a beachhead for us so we get the tanks in.
I see. So your tanks came in, and then...
Tanks in. Now they gave me a job. I had a tank retriever, what they call a tank retriever. It had an A-frame on it. So, put us on a boat. I'll have with the tank, the truck, and the Jeep, 4 mechanics, the truck, and the tank driver, and the truck driver, and myself. That was 7 on the ship, all alone. And we got lost from the convoy.
Oh, yeah.
We got lost in the convoy. Then it says, we got orders. I got orders before. Don't shoot at nothing, regardless what it is. Buzz bombs were going over to England just like nothing, you know.
Yeah.
So we got there anyway. We got to the beachhead anyway. We got off and everything else after they established the beachhead for us.
I see. And then you start pushing out. I heard a lot about the hedgerows that they came against.
All the hedgerows. We had a lot of fun going through the hedgerows. Yes.
That was one tough time.
One tough time. It was a tough time.
Now, I read that some of the tankers built things on the tanks to cut through they did it on their own so they could get through the hedgerows.
Like a bulldozer.
Yeah, did you have any part in that?
I didn't have no part in that at all, but the only part I had was making a rack for the machine guns to hold the cartridges.
I see.
The box of the cartridge. I made the first one that they had.
See, you improvised and you made this rack to hold the machine guns. Good, so you pushed up as the tanks went up, you went with them because you had to keep them going.
I was like a rescue squad.
I see. If a tank broke down, then you and the mechanics had to go and make sure it got going. Okay, so now tell us a little more of what happened then after that.
I got so much on my mind.
Yeah, well, just tell us, some of the high points. I mean, you got wounded.
I got wounded, yes, I got wounded. I got a call. Oh, blood and guts. There was 3 half-tracks stopped on the road. He was watching the battle, so I got the call. Get the half-tracks out of the road. So I went up and got the half-tracks out of it, started them up, found out what was wrong with them first. The guy had pulled it, the man had pulled it, the wire out of the ignition coil, so they wouldn't start them. So I had to find out what was wrong with them. So I found out what was wrong with them, moved them, then went up to see the general. They was calling me on his phone. I got up to General Patton. Talked to him for a minute. He says that the man that was in his Jeep, he was standing up watching the battle with his binoculars on. So he was watching the battle. He says the guy, his driver, had a call for Rogers. Then the general heard him say, "Are you Rogers?" He says. I said, "Yes, I'm Rogers." He says, "No, my tank commanders are telling me about Rogers, the best mechanic in the United States Army.
Hey, that's great.
One of the best now."
Yeah.
So I took his glove off and he shook hands with me.
Well, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful story.
So then he says, well, the guy that called up for the tank, now he says, General, he says, this man is not getting paid for what he's doing. So they had better men that get more money than I was getting. So he shook hands with me and he says, "Keep up the good work." Then I had to go back down and get the tank going. There was a what the heck did they call them now? They were civilians. They were civilians. I forget what they called them. Oh, I can't think what the heck they call them.
Okay, so that's all right. And
he was down there with had his tank, had his hand on the carburetor on the tank, on the back of the tank. I told him, I said, "Did you touch any of them valves there?" He says, "No, I didn't touch anything." He says, so I told the guy, the commander, I told him to turn it over so I could listen to it. So I turned it over and I said, "All right, you can shut it off now." I know. So I went back to my Jeep. I got a spark plug wrench in my gun. So I told him, I said, "Take out a spark plug now and look and see what, and then find out what's wrong with this tank." And wow, he says to me, "Boy," he says, "how can you be so smart?" He says.
Yeah. So you got it going.
I told him.
All right, why don't you tell us something about getting wounded?
Oh, I got wounded right after that.
Yeah, well, what happened?
Right there at the tank when I was talking to the commander of the tank, and I got hit in the ankle.
Oh. What, a bullet?
The battle was going on down below.
Was it shrapnel or bullet?
I don't know what it was. It's still in there yet, I guess.
Oh, it's still in there?
Something's in there anyway.
Yeah. And did you go to the medics or go to the hospital?
Medics, that's foolish. Where could you see medic on the field? Only thing, as you could see, was just a first aid man.
I see.
I never see a doctor. No, when I got blew up now.
Well, tell us about that getting
blown up. When I got
blown.
blew up, I went down to, was in a field. I never see so many mushrooms in all my life. Good mushrooms. We stopped at this field. This Germans, they were throwing 88s at us again. So pretty soon, 1 yard hit, maybe 1,000 feet away from where we were. So me and the first sergeant run down, put the fire on. I hit the cab. It was loaded with gasoline cans, loaded with gas, the truck. So we put it out, put the fire out and everything else, and started walking back. And we started walking back a little ways, and the 88 dropped right aside of me. Blew me up as high as that ceiling. He ran away and left me. what's the sense of running? No sense of running, you know when a neck shell is going to fall.
Yeah, right.
So he got back up to up to Cap McDonald where the whole outfit was. So he says to Cap McDonald, says to him, Alphonse Lavoie was his name, first sergeant in the motor pool. He says, where's Roger? So he's probably dead back there. And you made to tell me, he said, you didn't try to help him or anything else? He says, no, I didn't try to help him or nothing. He says, I didn't want to get hit. Where are you going to run to? You don't know where the
Right.
next shell is going to drop.
So what happened? You're laying there. Did they come back for you?
Maybe half an hour or so. I don't know.
I see.
So I got up. Well, he called his cadre together. Cap McDonald had to call the cadre together. As long as Rogers is dead, somebody's got to take his place. So in the meantime, my men were there. Cap McDonald was talking to him, and one of my men says, Cap McDonald, look, here comes Rogers. Rogers, get up. And he called that first sergeant back, and I can't tell you honestly what, I wouldn't swear anyway, the way he was swearing at him, what he called him and everything else. And the first thing he said, you know, he says, if I had my way about this, he says, you wouldn't have them stripes. You'd be up there in the front lines with the rest of the men. Rogers would have your stripes, he says.
So, but how badly did you get wounded when that 88 exploded and kicked you
I
up?
never got a scratch.
It just blew you up?
The only thing I got was I spit blood for 3 weeks.
So you had some kind of concussion inside.
I still have pains in my side yet. Oh, that's what I want to tell you too.
Yeah.
when I was getting, well, I'm going way ahead of myself now, really.
All right, you going. You're going. Tell it in your order.
When I was going to be, after I got through and everything, after I got wounded, I lay for 5 days on the litter at the airport. Well, how I got wounded was the first place we ever stayed undercover on the German border. 88 come down through the ceiling of the barn that we were in. They got a 10-inch cut right from here to here and across this way.
I see. And you were in a
I took the first watch.
yeah. The Germans probably had their guns aimed at those shacks. They didn't.
We chased them out of the
Yeah.
places.
So they had their
We chased
gun
them
sights
out.
on it. So that was the third time you got wounded.
That was the second time.
Oh, the second, because you got hit by a bullet, you got blown up by an 88, now you got hit in the shack there.
We missed one thing now.
What's that?
Like I say, we had the tank we had an A-frame on it. It had a cable on the side that hooked into the cable and the track on the tank to raise it and lower it. So, Company C, which had a half track, was loaded with tools and everything else, was down in a ravine, so we had to move the tower. I got up on it. I got up to put the boom up, the A-frame. I'm climbing up to put the cable up on the top. So Sergeant was on the side, Sergeant Small was on the side, telling the tank driver what to do and everything else. They had to move the tank. And I'm climbing up on the thing, put the cable up. Instead of taking the cable off of the A-frame, you left it on the A-frame, dangling on the side of the tank. They moved the tank and down it come. I landed on top of that tank. The A-frame was on top of me. I had just grew enough on the top of the tank to fall into it. Then my helmet went flying, and Sergeant Small says, well, there goes Rogers. Well, I got up, I was all black and blue afterwards. After I got up, I had to go up again. So the sergeant that had the vehicle said to me, he says, now look, Rogers, he says, I don't know what you're doing or anything else. I said, I would never do that if I was you. Bullets were flying all over. Yeah. He said, you know, he says, I'm going to put you in for a Silver Star. I said, your company commander, Lieutenant Rockefeller, says, I'll never get it. Because I had an argument once before fixing one of his tanks.
So you didn't get it. You got.
I got nothing. I told the sergeant, I says, I'll never get nothing because I had an argument with him before.
I see. Yeah, they don't forget.
They don't forget. So he had it in for me.
All right, so how long were you in combat, you know, over a period of time
I was
about?
in from the time we hit the beachhead till the November when I got hit.
So they landed in, you landed in, when did Normandy start? It was in, when was
That was
it?
in July.
In July? And so you went July through November, you were in steady combat area.
Yeah.
I see. All right, then what happened?
Oh, we had a lot of things happen.
Well, I mean, you had a lot of combat
Yes, we had
going
a lot
on,
of
but,
combat.
all right, here you are in November. What happened after November?
After November, after I got hit, then that was all done for me. They
Yeah.
brought me to, I took the first watch. We pulled head straws. I got the short stick.
So you got
We had
first.
4 men now. The
All right.
truck driver and the tank driver weren't qualified. We didn't put them on any duties afterwards. They had a rest.
I
You know,
see.
the tank driver and the truck driver. So I got the short straws. I got the first watch. 88 come down through the building, and that's what.
All right, and then what did they do? Send you to the hospital and?
I had to holler for one of my men. I said, Art Loshi. I said, Art, come on down. I says, I'm hit. So he walked me over to the first aid tent that they had. And they had orders that night. Nobody walks the street. In the first town we ever stayed in. Nobody walks the street at all. So in the meantime, I could see one guy walking around, or who he was or anything else. So I picked him up and brought him over to the guards, and they put him in the tent over in the MPs were watching him. I don't know who he was or anything else. He had no business walking around. I had no business either. So, that same night, they brought up the mail to us that night. Lieutenant Katz was in the front seat of the truck, and he got killed right in the front seat of the truck. Lieutenant Katz, he was a nice fellow. Lieutenant Katz. In the meantime, one of our medics was walking around, and the guys up in the half-track were watching him, shot him right through the helmet, killed him. He had no business walking around. And the guys were gun crazy, gun happy.
All right, but you had a wound on your thigh, a real wound. I mean, were you walking around with that
No. This all happened before I got
before you got hit?
hit.
I
Before I
see.
got hit.
All right, now you got hit. What happened after you got hit?
After I got hit, I called one of my men. He brought me over to the tent where they had their first aid room.
Yeah,
So
and what happened at the tent? And
Nothing. They just looked, didn't do nothing to me. Just put powdered penicillin on it, and that's it.
yeah, but then they shipped you to somewhere.
Right, they brought me to a fellow by the name of Carpenter, who was running the ambulance. He says, Roger, I used to fix his ambulance. I don't know how many times I fixed it. He said, Roger, he says, I'm sorry to see you go. I don't know who I'm going to get now to fix my machine, keep my machine going.
I see, but he took you in the ambulance too.
There was 4 of us in the ambulance. So
I
now
see.
he says, I want you fellas to be quiet and lay down because they're shooting at us going out. They were shooting at the ambulance going
see.
out.
All right, so you got to, where did they take you to?
Brought me into an airport. I lay there for 4 days.
I see.
5 days. 4 days, 5 days.
And then what? They
Then
flew you.
Put us on a C-47, flew us over to England, from Paris to England.
And then you were put in the hospital.
Hospital in England.
How long did you stay in the hospital
I
in
was in
England?
the hospital for 30 days. I couldn't get out of bed.
I see.
And let me tell you something. When I was laying in the airport, I was starting to smell already. Never touched nothing. I had my still old clothes on. They brought me for 5 days.
Huh.
My macaroni was all ripped up and everything else.
So you spent 30 days in the hospital. How many days? 30 days you couldn't get up, but how long
30
did you spend in the
I
hospital?
was in the hospital for almost a year for rehab.
Wow. In England.
In England.
All right. After a year, you finally got healed up.
Well, I was in England at the rehab station in England, so started party. I went in the hospital now. I'm getting back now a little ways.
All right. Go ahead.
They put me in bed for 2 weeks. Had me in bed for 2 weeks. I couldn't move or nothing else. So finally, after the 2 weeks, the nurse came to me. She says, "Mr. Rowdy," she says, "Sergeant Rowdy," says, "you know what's the matter with you?" He said, "You got hypertension." I said, "I don't know what's hypertension." "High blood pressure." So they discharged me with high blood pressure, and I don't get a penny for it.
They discharged you from the service right in England?
Right, not in England. They discharged me in the
United States. In
United
other words,
States.
they shipped you back to the United States. Did you go by boat or?
It took us 11 days to come back.
Yeah.
It was 65-mile-an-hour headwind all the way back.
All right, so you came back to the United States, and
Well,
then they discharged you because you had high blood pressure, not because of your wound.
they discharged me because I couldn't go back anyway with
Yeah.
the wound that I had
Right.
and the high blood pressure. I got nothing for it.
Yeah. Do you remember when you got out? Or around when was it?
I got out in it was September or something. September.
40
In 44.
September of 44, 45.
45.
45.
45.
45.
45.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're back home. You got discharged from the service, came back home, and then what you do?
Nothing.
Well, you did something.
Well, I come back home and I met a girl before, went overseas, so I come back home. I called her up and I said, "Come down, I got something for you." So she came down from Watertown. I met her in Watertown about it. I had a diamond ring that I bought in Belgium.
I see.
So I stayed at my mother's house overnight. She said, "No, I want you to take me home. I want to show my father the ring." So I said,
Good. Then you get married.
got married. Yes,
When did you get married? About
46.
46. You got married.
Yeah.
All right, and you moved. You still lived in Hoosick Falls.
Before I went in the service, I bought a lot up in Saratoga Lake. Built
I
a
see.
home up there.
I see.
But then Uncle Sam took me till I had to finish it. We come back.
All right. So when you came home, you got married. And you lived in Saratoga Lake.
We went to Saratoga.
And what did you do for a living?
Well, I went working around, trying to get jobs. Jobs. I worked for myself for a while. So until I got $6,000 on the book and couldn't get no money.
That's what happens to
that's enough
tradesmen.
of that.
Yeah. So what did you do then?
Then I went to work for the West Virginia Mechanicsville.
Mechanicsville? Yeah.
In the
Big
paper
plant. Yeah, the big paper plant.
Yeah.
And how long did you work for
I
them?
worked there for 22 years.
For 22 years. Then you retired.
Then I retired.
Did you have any children?
No children.
No children. All right. And that was quite a while ago, because if you're 92, that was quite a while ago that you retired. You've been retired.
That was 1971.
So you've been retired for 30 years. That's great.
Yeah.
Now, you got right there is your dog tags, and you got a nice display there. You got your discharge,
Yeah.
and you got 2 Purple Hearts
Two
and a
Purple
Bronze
Hearts.
Star.
Yeah.
Right. And you got your sergeant stripes, and I see that the gold duck there that showed you got discharged. All right, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about? I mean, it's your show.
I don't know. I got so much. I'd be here all day.
Yeah, well, if there's any good stories that you think somebody would 100 years from now would like to hear, because this is going to stay in the museum.
I'll tell you now. I never see so many quacks in all my life as I see in the Army, doctors.
Oh, really?
They had the basic training. Now I'll get back to that again. Now basic training. So crawling on their bellies, so machine gun fire. Crawling on their bellies, 2 great big long thorns that long. Went to both of my testicles. Now I went to the doctor. He was a Jewish doctor. I don't have nothing against the Jews or anything else. Instead of pulling them out the right way, he pulls them out backwards.
Oh, boy.
Now, anybody with any common sense at all would never pull them backwards. Pull them out the way they went in because
Yeah.
they have burrs on them, you know.
They get caught, sure.
That's why we never had any children.
I see. Is there any other things you tell us about the service? You know,
Oh, the
interesting
service,
stories or funny stories? Or anything that you'd like to tell us?
Yes, I got stories right here now. I had 2 warts now, what they called sponge warts. Then I had an attack of sinus trouble at Pine Camp. So I went to went at my girlfriend's house. I got an awful, my head was bothering, my sinus was filled up so much. So I went over to the hospital Sunday afternoon. I went to the hospital. The guy said to me, he went over and looked at these 2 fingers. He said, "Who works?" I said, so he take 2 sticks about that long, stuck them up my nose, one in each side with a dab of cotton on it, to drain out the sinus, and nothing come out. But then he said, "Let me see your fingers." So he took a stiletto out, he started cutting on my fingers. He said, I don't know what he put, he didn't numb them up or anything else, just cut with a knife. I said, "Hey." So he cut, he says, "Yeah, well, I guess you have got something there." So he cuts it on, he cuts them out a little bit. Yeah, he says, "You got something there, all right." So it takes, afterwards, he takes silver nitrate crystals. You know what silver nitrate crystals are? He puts them on both fingernails. Put a bandage on them. 3 o'clock in the morning, Pine Camp, I had to get up and take a jackknife and drill a hole in my fingernails, let the blood pressure out.
Crazy. Crazy story.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
Hey, now, I got to get back again now. John Cal, him and I, there was 4 of us that belonged to the disabled veterans in Hoosick Falls. He had to go to the Watervliet Arsenal. That's before they built the hospital. So I go to the hospital down with him for reevaluation. So this doctor said to me, he says, "There ain't nothing wrong with him. He's crazy." Now this is the doctor. He's crazy. Oh, I was getting those pains in the side from the concussion. I know. He said, "There ain't nothing wrong with him. They can't find nothing there." So in the meantime, now in England, when the guy fluoroscoped me, I'm getting way back, I've got everything all mixed up. Fluoroscoped me. He says, he asked me one question. I don't know whether he was a doctor or what. Yes, he says, "Were you ever blew up?" I said, "Yes." An 88 dropped right aside of me and blew me up in the air. He said, "Then you know what's wrong with you?" He says, "Your heart is enlarged and tipped to one side." He says, "Now don't ever let anybody cut you open to have a look," he said. "Because your word is just as good as theirs," he said. That's what he told me in England.
I see.
When I was there for the wound. So that,
Well,
you know.
the medicine isn't exact science anymore. I know it never
When
was.
I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and drill holes in them fingernails,
Yeah, gee, unbelievable.
the blood shot up in the air out there. My hand was throbbing already. You know, all black and blue.
Sure. Well, anyway, is that about the story?
No. They took care of them for me in Texas. They ran maneuvers in Texas, so I went on sick call. I wanted to see that there was an English doctor. He says, "Is there anything else wrong with you?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I got tonsils that I've been trying for 2 years to get them taken out. They wouldn't take them out when somebody." So he says, "Let me see it." He says, "Why don't you get them out?" He says to me, the doctor. I said, "One had a hole in it already. One of my tonsils."
Yeah.
He said, "Why don't you have?" I said, "Look at doctor, for 2 years I've been trying to get them out, and they wouldn't take them out for me." So he put me in the hospital, took them out, and they took care of the fingernails.
Took care of it all at once.
Yeah, all at once.
Yeah. Well, good. I mean, that was an interesting story. You've been through a lot, and we appreciate you coming down.
I've been through a lot, I know. Hey.
Yeah. But hey, you've made it to 92. You can't be too bad. So that's lucky on your side. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.